Welcome to our third session of the Process Maker training. Hello, I am going to be now presenting the next part of this training. Can you hear me? Hello, I want to know if anybody can hear me. Is there anybody here? Okay. Can I start or do you want to wait a few minutes? So yes, I can start. Okay. Well, on Tuesday we discussed about how we can use Process Maker in the task of modeling a process. So we have explored all the features, all the characteristics to explore a group of options for designing our processes. And in fact, it's what we were doing during these sections, especially, well, we started on Tuesday. So we explored all these features to construct our process. And well, with that, we are just mapping and we are giving some hints about how we can use the power of Process Maker to model all our process with features, characteristics, some functionalities, and so on. We represent our daily work. Well, but it's not enough. Apart from what we have seen, there is another way to see things in a different way. And obviously, if you're going to see your process map, as you can see now in my screen, is something that you are interested in. But a final user, a user who is going to be concerned about using your process, he might not have access to your process. He doesn't know what lies behind. But what he is going to see is a front-end design. He is going to see a design of the forms, a design of other features where our participants of our process can see. So we talk about a process maker object. We talk about forms, a way that we can enter all our information, our data. We can enter all that information. It's a form, but it's not the typical form that we are using all the time with just filling the same type of form. We are going to be engaged in using forms in a different way. The name of this object is the dynamic form. Dynamic forms are going to be presented today, but before that, I want to take a very interesting topic. You're going to like it. Variables. Since we have designed our process, we might need some variables that we are going to use. In that sense, I'm going to explore some of the variables that we are going to be able to use. So I'm going to create some variables. And what does this mean? Why do I use some variables? First of all, you have to understand that by using variables, I am trying to store some information, to store some data. So it's like, okay, I'm going to have this value stored in this variable. That's all. The only thing that you have to learn is that. Well, so it's that. It's a way in which you can see Process Maker in that sense. So let's explore things here. We have the variable. So in the main toolbox, you are going to click here on create. On this part, you are going to include all the name of the variables that you need. So let's make the example. The first one is going to be name. Then you require another variable, and here you can see the list. In the list of variables, you are going to see that it says first the name, then it mentions the type, and the type that I'm going to use is a string. Why a string? Because a name is just a collection of characters. That's all. String is a collection of characters. Simple. Don't make things complicated. It is just that. Okay, so I'm going to click on create here, and I'm going to enter the name for the next variable. But we can see here the form for create variable. So we've got the five, well, at least we are talking about that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, around 5 fields. The first one is the name of the variable. The second one is the string. And there are many different types of variables. You are going to see that I am using string because it's used for names, it's used for entering some data, it can be also a location, and so on. Integer is a type of variable where you enter a data which is integer. Float is for numbers, but decimal numbers. So it expands the rise to them using a different type of numbers. Then you have Boolean, and Boolean is a binary value. It can be yes or no. It's 0 or 1. Datetime. Datetime is a way in which you're going to enter. Well, it's a type of data for dates. Grid. Grid is very different. Grid is a way. It's in a, well, I'm going to make very simple for you. I know. Do you have anyone who is technician here or in IT technologies or something like that? Okay. A grid is an array of arrays. If you can call it in a mathematical way, it's a matrix. Okay. Well, it's an array of array. It's the best approximation to what I'm trying to express to explain that. But the point is that in some forms we are going to use some lists. By using lists, because it's a web control, you're going to enter data, and this data is going to be stored in a programming language term and multi-dimensional array. You can also use some associative arrays in Process Maker. Well, then you have array. Then you have the format for a file and multiple file. In the case that you are going to upload the file, you can store the information in file. Then you've got object. Since we have started working with APIs and services in Google and other services like DocuSign and so on, the main idea is to bring all this information in an object format, and then we are going to make the procedure to use the object and transform it into something different. So that's why we use an object. Okay, then you've got this. When I select here any type of variable type, you're going to see here a message, and it says supported controls, text, as area, drop down, radio, suggest, and hidden. Why do I need to pay attention to this part? Because you are going to see that in the design of Dynaforms, you need some variables specifically, because for each web control that we use in our Dynaform, you're going to include one of these web controls and therefore one of these variables. Right now I know that you are a little bit like, okay, he's talking something that I don't really understand right now. Wait, I'm going to explain you later what I'm talking about. By now, remember this, bear in mind, a variable goes with a web control, and both are engaged, if we can call it like that. They are tightly connected. Then you have here a database connection. It can be a PM database, it can be another database that I have used, and so on. Why? Because I can populate that variable with some statement here in SQL. I'm not going to emphasize right now on this because you are going to see it later, maybe the next week. But my point is this one. When you are going to use an SQL statement, what I try to use is a statement that recovers information from a database and then it's going to populate a variable and therefore is going to populate a web control. Okay? But by now we are not talking about that. It's just one of the reference that I am giving you right now. Well, this is something that I have explained with you. Below you are going to find another thing. It is the define accepted values. What does it mean that? Let me tell you right now. Define accepted variable values represents that I can introduce a set of options for a variable. And here they are going to introduce as if it were a kind of an array, because I'm going to introduce in a key. It's going to be like an index, it's an associated array, and then a value, and so on. I'm going to show you how it is used. Well, let's begin. So I created my first variable. Let's continue with the next variable. The next one is going to be email, and it's going to be a string. Then I'm going to need a description, because a description is just a chain of characters. It's going to be a string, so I don't need to change that. I'm going to create now a list of items, and it's going to be item grid. I'm going to create here. Okay, so it's an item grid here. Then, well, you're going to find here some information. Well, then I'm going to create some variables for the next web controls that we are going to use. Let me remember that each variable is going to be associated with a web control, so they are not going to be isolated. The first one, so we created 3 of them. Now we are going to introduce another one. It's going to be VAT, and for this one I'm going to include a boolean type, excuse me. And in the boolean I need to introduce with taxes, which is true, without taxes. I'm going to introduce another one. It's going to be copy. Budget. Budget. and it's going to be a file. Well, it's not a multiple file. I'm going to use the budget date and save it. Then I'm going to use another one. Okay, we have that budget date, description, email, item grid, name. Then I'm going to need another one is sector. And here I can select some of them, like one is going to be can be like industry, manufacturer. Okay, I'm going to explain this part. When I'm going to use just a string without these defined accepted variable values, what I'm trying to do is that the possibility to include many features is going to be limited if I'm going to use this option. So it means that any value of them, define accepted variable values, okay, is going to include all this information, industry, manufacturer, and so on. Let me put it in words. When I'm going to create a string like name, okay, I have a question. Oh, oh, my excuses. Okay, it can be both. Okay, but it's sensitive case. But the best that I can do is to go here and use that in that case. Yeah, my excuses. Um, I want to emphasize on this. When it's more the technique that I'm using to write a variable is a camel case, and it's very common, especially in JavaScript. You write here the name and then the other name agglomerated, and the first one is going to be an uppercase. It's natural to use, not natural, it's very common, it's a common practice to write all the variables in lowercase. Okay, it's very common. Okay, so we were talking about sector. If I have name, a string in this case, in the case of name, is going to be the options are going to be ample in the way that I can introduce any name, because it's just introducing whatever that my keyboard allows me. But when I'm going to introduce define accepted value for the same variable type, I'm going to define a specific, a very finite options. So in this case, it is going to be 1 industry, 2 manufacturer, 3 is going to be service, and so on. And I'm going to save, or maybe 4 education, and then save it. Okay, so these are the variables that I'm using right now. There are many other important options that we can use in Process Maker, but right now I'm just going to use this type of variables. Okay, let me remember. So I'm going to have sector, then I'm going to have the VAT, the name. Oh, origin, country. I can use that. And origin city, and so on. So basically that. Now let's begin to play. Okay, I have created my list of variables. If I'm going to click here, you're going to see here the list of variables. Okay, well, let's see. You have here now the Dynaform. So I'm going to click on Dynaforms here. And here I'm going to introduce a name. It's the budget creation. This is the way that I can create a Dynaform. So what is a Dynaform? It's a form that is going to have some features, some characteristics that you're going to know today, and they are going to help you to create your own ways to work in Process Maker. So it's the budget creation. I'm going to save and open this. Oh, I need to enter a description. This is a Dynaform for budget creation. If I save, it's going to send me to the list of Dynaforms. If I save and open, it's going to send me to the designer. So welcome to the designer. I'm going to explain you right now what does it mean, this part. This is a Dynaform designer. And you're going to understand that we have the same idea. The drag and drop for designing activities here is the same that we have used for modeling design. Other things that you have to understand is that here in this part you're going to be allowed to save your Dynaform, export it, import a new Dynaform from another file outside Process Maker. You can see the preview. Then you have here clear, okay, to erase all the Dynaform. And finally here is language. With language I can change, okay, I can change the way that I can use the information about this Dynaform. Okay, so basically it is that. Let's begin with the Dynaforms. I'm going to move this title. Okay, this part I'm going to explain. Here you have web controls, mobile controls, properties, and history of use. If I click on title, you're going to see that if I click here, it's going to show me some properties. In this case, the title, the ID, and the label. In the label, we are going to enter this information: budget creation. Each web control represents a space, a field for the creation of our Dynaform. So in this case, you are going to see that this web control contains three properties. It has three properties: type, ID, and label. Okay, so you've got here the three properties. So what does it mean, this? So you have here the three properties, and they are going to be, some of them I can modify. The type is going to indicate me the type of web control that I'm using. So in this case, the type of web control that I'm using is the title type. Then you are going to see that there is an ID. The ID is used, you're going to use it especially in JavaScript. There is an extension with JavaScript here in Process Maker in these Dynaforms where we can enhance some qualities about the Dynaform. And finally, label. Label is something that you write and it is shown to the customer. It means that the final user is going to see this title with this name because it has this label. Well, the designer is divided in rows, so you are going to design for each row. But what happens if I need to use columns? Because I'm not going to use for each row, I'm going to use each web control. No, it doesn't make sense. We're going to do something very interesting here. I'm going to call span here. And the maximum call span, the maximum size of a row is going to be 12. A row consists of 12 units in call span. If I'm going to divide this row in two, I need to use this criterion. This criterion, 6 space 6, 6 plus 6 plus 6, 12. And you can see that it is divided. I can use this format of numbers to divide even more. 4, 4, 4. 4 plus 4 plus 4 equals 12. So it's just number, space, number, space, number. So you have all this row here. But what happens that I'm using this kind of spacing activity, this kind of using some spaces, numbers, and so on. So I am practically using that because I want to define some spaces. So here you're going to use 6 and 6, and then you got here this. So it's a way to divide our row in columns. And now I can add the next one. But before adding some web controls, I want to show you something very interesting. I can use in this way also. 2, 2, 4, 2, 2. All the numbers must sum up 12. And then you have this type of division. Maybe you will ask me, I want my title to be in the middle of the entire Dynaform. Okay, you just apply the call span and then you move the title here. And there you have it. Your title is in the middle of the Dynaform. Okay, well, this is one of the things that we can use in Process Maker. Remember, call span is for that. So I'm going to leave it as 6. Now I'm going to enter before a subtitle. And it's going to be budget information. Budget reporter information. I'm going to introduce here a text box. It's a web control. And when I select a web control, different from subtitle and title, I require a variable. By using that, I need to select a variable, and it's going to be name. If If I click here, you are going to find a plenty of properties of each web control. I'm going to modify here the label, and it's going to be name, the name of the reporter of the budget. Let's check it out, each one of these properties. The type is going to be text, because this is the web control that I'm using. The variable is going to be name. The variable data type is string. It is this one. Then I need protected value, and this is going to protect my data in case it's going to be violated in the field. Name is the ID of this web control, okay? And this is going to be used specifically for JavaScript processes, for JavaScript purposes. Then you have this label and its name. Then the default value is going to be, for instance, name fictitious. And if I am going to see the preview, you're going to see that this is the default name. Then a placeholder, fictitious. And this is like a watermark where you can give some instructions. Then you have a hint, and it can be also fictitious. Again, I'm going to use the same example. And this is the hint. Finally, you can use this required. When you are going to enter all the information about this variable, you are going to see that with this required, you are forcing people to enter all the information of that required. Then required field error message. So when you don't have, for instance, you have entered this and then you write, when nobody, for instance, you failed at entering all the information required by their form, it's going to show you this message of required field error message. Text to transform. When you enter something, it can be lowercase, uppercase, capitalized phrase, title case. Then you got validate, and in validate I'm going to enter some instructions about using. Do you know these expressions? You know, there's a technical name for these regular expressions. That's way. Regular expressions are expressions like this one that are going to validate that if this field contains what I require. For instance, if I need an email, I'm going to introduce this kind of regular expression to evaluate if that one is correct, if that information is correct. Then you have the text transform is this one, validate, okay. Then the maximum length, it means the size of that field. Then formula, I'm not going to enter the part of formula right now, but I'm going to tell you something. When I'm going to use a list in the grid web control, I need to use a formula to make the sum of all the total of prices or something like that, okay? But by now, you don't need formula. Then you have a display mode, and in display mode, what I try to do is to enter, okay, is the way that the user can see this web control. It can be parent. So what means parent? That if the entire Dynaframe is on view mode or edit mode, this field is going to inherit the parent's display mode. In this case, edit. Then you have edit, it's for editions, view is to see just information, and disable is not to make it's a kind of view, but you cannot use that information. It's like you're restricting the access. Then you have DB connection, the database connection. I can select a database here, and in SQL I can enter that database. Name. Then you have the email. Then I can, well, this is again just a web control, and you are going to enter the email, and that's all. Then I'm going to enter the text area, and it's going to be description. Now, have you noticed something? When I'm trying to select a variable for a web control, some options are available. You are not going to see a datetime variable type to be shown here in the list. They are not here, they are dismissed. So it means that for each web control that I am entering here, in this case the text area, I'm going to have some options. And in this case, the variable that fits to that part is the description. So I'm going to click on description here and enter the label description. An important detail here is that this text area web control is going to include this important information. Just a moment, I'm going to show you what. The rows. If it's 5, you're going to see something like this. Just a moment. It's 5. You're going to see something like this. 5 rows. If it's 25, we extend the size of the web control. So the text area allows me to expand the size of the web control that I have here, the rows. Okay, so I have finished the first part of this. I'm going to use another subtitle to introduce another type of web control. So I'm going to enter now the subtitle, and it's going to be budget information. And the first one is going to, well, I need to divide into these 6 and 6, okay, and this is going to be drop down here, select the variable, and it says country of origin, okay. So I'm going to write here on the label country of origin, country, just origin, okay, country. Then another one that says origin city. Again, I divide into this. And it's going to be here date time. And I'm going to select in date and the budget date. So I'm going to enter the label, and it says budget date. Okay. Okay, well, another web control, another difference. First, I'm going back to this web control, the drop down. The drop down has a very interesting feature. Apart from what we have seen from text and text area, you're going to see that I'm going to check another property, and this property is the SQL statement that I need to populate the drop down. So if you see at the bottom of these web controls all the collection of excuse me all the collection of properties that you've got here, at the end, at the bottom of this collection of web controls of properties, you are going to see the part that says SQL and options. SQL means that I can write a statement to populate, I'm not just a statement, a query to populate that web control. What means a query? For people that maybe don't know a little bit about that, I'm going to write a statement, and I'm going to bring information from my database. It can be any table from my database, but I need to specify through SQL, a language for these queries. I need to specify that, and then by bringing that information, I'm going to be able to populate that field. Option is a little bit different, because with options I can enter, as you remember in our variable, let me show you the variable. In this variable, it's going to work in the same way in sector. Okay, let's go back to our Dynaform. I'm going to enter here a sector, and for this sector I'm going to use a drop down. Now I want you to notice something. Since I have used options to create my, if you remember, the construction of this variable included these defined options, and now they have been transferred to this web control. So it means that this sector variable is going to have just 4 variables. So I'm going to click on here, and you're going to see that you have industry, manufacture, service, and education. If I click on options, you're going to see that these options are shown here. Well, let's see. You have sector, okay. Select variable, sector, origin country, name, email. Okay. Finally, I need to go to the last of them. It's going to be the checkbox. And if you remember, it's a VAT. It's a Boolean. And it's going to be a VAT here. We just say that this is going to be included or not included. I mean taxes. Do you have any question until this point? Is everything clear? Okay. Now we go to the last part, and it's going to be click on web controls and enter a new subtitle. And it's going to be list of items. We know that it's a budget, so I'm going to include a list of items here. But for that, you know that it's a list. In that case, the best or the most suitable web control for this case is a grid. I'm going to click on grid here and select the variable grid. And in here, I'm going to enter now the title, item grid, and save it. Well, it doesn't look something different, so it's a little empty. So I need to include some web controls to enhance the properties of a grid. So what I'm trying to do is a grid allows me to enter web controls, and it says here grid, drag and drop controls, support, text box, text area, drop down, checkbox, and so on. Well, what do we have to do? Drag and drop controls. I'm going to enter the first one, a text box, click on this one, and click item and item. Remember something, I'm modifying a grid 3 things: the column width 25, then the ID item and the label item. In here, I'm going to enter the it's going to be in this case I'm going to enter the quantity. Excuse me. I suggest you should write the ID in lowercase letters, okay? Quantity, and finally the label quantity, and then save it. Okay, then we go for our next web control. I'm going to drag and drop, and it's going to be the price. We know that for a budget it requires some prices, so you need to include some prices in the dynamo. Process Maker allows you that by using the grid. So I'm going to include the price. And the label is going to be price. Finally, it doesn't seem that you have to just know the quantity and the price, because you need some information extra, some important information to understand what you are buying. It means the total amount. By entering the total amount, I'm going to drag and drop here a text box here, then click it here, and finally write here the name. It's going to be total, and here is going to be total as well. So I'm going to include that information. The quantity is going to be 25 here. Then the price is going to be 25. And the total is going to be 25. Okay, in total you have 100. Finally, I'm going to drag and drop one of these files, is the file upload, and the budget. And this is going to be budget, upload the budget. Okay. And well, this web controls app has some important features, like input document. It means that I can make it work, okay, with another step that we use in Process Maker that is called the input document. It's hard to explain right now because I need you to understand what is used for. Maybe I can give you one example here, okay? The input document, just to explain, the input document it is a step to upload a file. And by doing this, I'm going to, in this case, by selecting an input document, it means that what I'm going to upload in this Dynaform is going to be shown in that step that is called input document. Well, you have here some file extensions, the file size, the size of the size you need, the versioning, and the display mode. Finally, I'm going to enter a button called submit, and it's for sending all that information. Well, what is missing right now? Okay, I have a question. It says, how many items can be uploaded with the file upload with control? Many. You know, it's like with the file upload, you're going to, well, we haven't tried a maximum size, but I know that you can enter many of them. So it's like you can enter all of them. And there you have. Okay, so you have some exceeding files. But it's because of the size, but you can enter many files. Okay? I want to make it a little nicer, my item grid. You know that the total is the quantity times price. So I'm going here to this part. I'm going back to the part of the grid. I have missed something. In here, we are going to enter a formula. And the formula is going to use the IDs of the web controls. In this case, it's quantity times price. And what is happening here? If I enter the quantity like 12 and 12, then you are going to obtain the total. I enter another row and it says 13, 12, and it's going to be this total. Okay? Finally, I need to enter one of the features, and it's the function sum. The total is going to be, it's going to sum all the totals of these dyna. So I'm going to enter here 12, 12, 12, 12, and you can see here the total sum. Moreover, this grid extends me the possibility to add a row. If I unclick here, I'm not going to be able to add a row. In contrast, if I'm going to not allow to delete the row, I'm going to be able to enter rows but not to delete them. That's why that we use all of them. Page size, it allows me to introduce the quantity of rows per page. If I'm going to say 5, it means this. I'm going to enter this, and beyond 5, it's going to create another page. Well, okay, so do you understand all this part? Is it clear? Do you have any question? Uh, each Dynaform contains one list, and maybe you can do something, and you can check that on the part of triggers. If you have many Dynaforms in a process, you can sum the total from Dynaform 1, then from Dynaform 2, and then from Dynaform 3. You can do that, but not to add. In that case, yes, you can do it. You have that possibility to sum the total of many dynaforms using that, but not using this formula, because this formula is for each dynaform and specifically for each grid. Okay, so I think that I don't have more questions about this. Well, I have finished my dynaform. If I click here, I can export my dynaform, erase it, and import it again. It's a JSON object, so I can import it and then I can bring back my dynaform. I can use the preview here, and you can see the preview of all my dynaform. It's this one. Finally, okay, so just these options. I can also save the dynaform. Well, dynaforms are very helpful for us. You can use in many ways to understand what is the picture, what operations can be done using a dynaform. Okay, well, now I'm going to start with some exercises. Okay, so I'm going to my just a moment. Okay, just a moment, please. I need to show you a page here. Okay, just a moment, please. Um, well, I have logged to Process Maker University, and we go to this lesson. I need you to do now just the lab, the Dynaforms lab. Please try to do this laboratory Dynaforms. Okay? Do you follow me? All of you, please. Okay. Daniel and Farah both are with me. Okay? Hassan also. Okay, so do this laboratory, just this laboratory. You're going to have 15 minutes. 15 minutes for this lab. Is that okay? 15 minutes. Do you understand? Okay, Jennifer, it's fine. Okay, so you can start the lab. Lab Dynaforms. 15 minutes. Hello, I'm back. Um, well, I receive a message. It says, "Hello, we created all the variables as per the lab instructions. Yet, when we select to add a dropdown within the subtitle, The only variable options are those with string types. What I know is from the training, this is your okay. I'm going to use this workspace, okay? Let me see it, okay? Well, so if you have the creation of variables, there shouldn't be any problem. So you can create and you're going to find all the options. So maybe you should check a little bit about that. Let me remember that each web control is associated with each type of variable type. I have another question here and is about, can you show us about the columns? Well, about the columns, I said that you can modify in a column by using the call span, as I can show you here, and then you're going to have this possibility to modify your options. Okay, so this is one of the options that you can have about modifying your web controls. How was the lab? Do you still have questions? Okay, the rest of you. Okay, Daniel, which one is your question? Do you have it? Okay, so I believe is everything fine? Do you understand everything about this lesson? Okay, no more questions. If you want, you can ask me. Well, no, I don't have any more questions. I answered one of Hassan, and it was about the gold span that I explained. Okay, okay, ask me the question. Okay, try to write the question. I'm going to answer. Okay, I'm going to show you the part of the call span. Well, um, I know that you have seen the part that says food, the part that says and food and everything. Don't pay attention to that because that is going to be populated with some PM tables that we are going to do the next week. Don't pay attention to that. Now about the call span, Hassan, and also for all the people. Okay, if you go here, you click here to the entire arrow or row. Then you use the call span. I want to divide this row into parts. So I can use 4, 8, and plus 4 plus 8 is 12, and the maximum is 12. So you are going to have this type of division, 4 and 8. But if you have 6, 6, for instance, it is this one. Okay? Now, Jennifer tells me, please remind me how to add the variables to the drop-down feature. Okay, let me imagine that I'm going to, not imagine, I'm going to show you. So it's going to be 6, 6 here, and in here I'm going to add the drop-down web control. I drag and drop it. Then I select a variable. It can be, for instance, origin city. Well, we already have that variable. But the point of that is that I can click here and select a variable and select a variable to add in this web control. Does this answer to your question, Jennifer? Okay, David, it says, okay, he tells me, we created all the variables as per the lab instructions. Yet, when we select to add a drop-down within the subtitle, the only variable options are those with string types. Yes, because when you use a drop-down, the only options that you are going to have are strings. Let me show you this. Oh, again, here. Imagine that I'm going to unselect this. If I click here, for this drop-down, the only variables are going to be string type. Why? Let's go to the list of variables. If I select a string type, it says supported controls. A string type supports text, text area, drop-down, radio, suggest, hidden, geomap, and QR code. Is it clear, that part? Oh, it says the instructions ask us to use invoice date with the datetime item as a drop-down variable. Let me check for a while. Well, invoice date is daytime, and then I'm going to continue, and then continue this. Okay. Try add datetime control, web control. Okay. When assigning a variable, a list of variables will only show variables with the datetime type, because this web control only works with this type of variable. So it's invoice date. Yeah, maybe it was a confusion. Okay. You confuse the date invoice type with the invoice date, but both are different web controls. This is going to use a string type, and the other one is going to use a date type. Yeah. I'm going to clarify that, okay? And thanks to make me notice that part, because yeah, I know you confuse a little bit about that. Okay, how was the lab in general? Was it nice? Was it a nice experience? Did you like it? Okay, Yeah, it's a practice. Well, Dynaforms are just front-end design. So it's something that I'm going to show to the final users. It's just that we use in that way these kind of exercises. I'm going to explain next tomorrow, Thursday. I'm going to explain other web controls. Then we are going to explore the part of languages in Dynaforms, and then we close this topic. Now I want to make a brief review of all the class that we have taken today. So I'm going to explain some important topics about what we discussed today. Okay, Jennifer asked me, it was fine, I have a question about yesterday's lab, since it missed a portion of the webinar. Do you have a minute during break now how to remove the connectors without deleting the task? If you go here to the lab, you can click here, just left click on the connector and erase it. And that's all. Okay, time to share some important things. Let's go to Dynaform. Okay, things that you have to remember. Okay, things that you have to remember. Um, well, today we explore the first part of using Dynaforms. We explore many interesting things. Um, First of all, we check about variables and the creation of variables. So we created a list of variables as you can see here. So we created budget day, description, and so on. So it's a list of variables that we created here. Then each one of them is going to have a type of variable. So if I'm going to click here on this part, you're going to see that you have the variable name, the variable type, the database connection, the SQL, and define accepted values fields as part of this form. So it's variable name, variable type, and so on. So if I'm going to write here the variable name and then the variable type, you're going to have here a variable created on this variable type, string. Let me remember that below we are going to have an instruction that says that each variable type is going to support a web control. So in this case it says text area, drop down, radio, suggest, hidden, and so on. So why do we use different types of variables? It's because we use different types of data. In this case, a string is a collection of characters. And what is a collection of characters? A collection of characters can be, for instance, a collection of characters can be a name, an address. These are collection of characters. Then you have another one that is a text area, drop down, and radio. Okay, a string is a collection of characters. In the strings, I can define accepted variable values. And if you remember, one of the options that I have here, in sector, included these define accepted variable values. In your lab, you check that there was this possibility to construct a variable, if I remember, is the approval variable, and also the terms of payment, where you can include define accepted variable values. So, I use this as a way to introduce a defined set of options, remind me as a way to include not just options but values. So this was a way define accepted variable values. Then not just that, we included budget date, description, email, and so on. When we created also, we explore another type, which is integer. Integer is used for numbers, integer numbers. Float is a type for decimal numbers. Boolean is a type for a binary value option. It means that it can be yes or no, 1 or 0. Okay, that's a Boolean. Then you have a datetime, and a datetime is a format for dates. It's a way that you can store information for dates. Then you have the grid. The grid in a programming sense is an array of arrays, a multi-dimensional array. Finally, you have an array here. Finally, you have here file. This is for files. Then you have multiple file. And the last one, and this is one of the last things that we have created, is object. We use object to store very complex information, because when we receive some information from Google services or from DocuSign services, we can receive as an object, and then we can start working with this information to obtain some type of info. Okay, so this is the case of variables. Once it has been created, you are going to find all this list. A variable is going to be associated with a dynaform. So if you see here, this is the budget creation, and this is the dynaform that we have created. If you remember, the first 3 web controls that we added used this type of information. They used a web control. One of them was name. A name is a string, and because it is a string, we have used a string type of variable called name. Let me remember that if you select here a variable, the options that are going to be shown are options that we use for the string type. Okay, why? Because, well, it's a string, just that. So click on name. Then you have that for email, and then for description. So we basically use in that sense all that information. We use name, email, description, but the 3 of them are strings. We have added also a title and then a subtitle. Let me remember also that the dynaform itself is regarded as a web control, a big web control, and it also has some properties. One of them can be form, then the ID of the dynaform, then the name, the description of the dynaform, display mode. This is for JavaScript, to include some code of JavaScript, then a language, it can be English, some external libraries, in case you require some important things about using Process Maker with some features in JavaScript, you can use external libraries here. Then you have the print form. Okay, so these are some possibilities to use about Dynaforms. Do you have any question about this? Okay, no questions. Well, so that's the way that we can use. Let me remember that a label is something that you show to your to the final user. Okay. Then you have these web controls. Then you have these. This is another web control: the budget information, the country, the city, and so on. Now, if you check another type of web control like this one, you're going to find a plenty of properties. And I have explained when all of them, like type, variable, variable data type, and well, you can protect the value, you can use the ID for JavaScript purposes, but also you can use JavaScript or this ID for this case, for this kind of formulas in grids. You can also use the required. You can use the default value, the placeholder, and the hint. So there are options that you can use in Process Maker in that way. Then every web control is going to have different properties. For instance, the datetime. In datetime, you're going to have a format to show the dates, but also I can define a minimum and a maximum date. So I'm defining a set of dates to be selected. I save it, go to the preview, and you're going to find that I cannot select earlier than the July 11th or after July 19th. Okay, so it's one of the options that we have with that, but I can also leave it like that, and then you can select whatever date that you require. Well, I have a question from Jennifer. It says, will the placeholder value appear on the final document, or should we use the default value? Difference with that. If I'm going to use the default value here, like R, this is going to be shown as a value in the document itself, as the form for the final user. But if I'm going to use this as a placeholder, you're going to see that now the color is different and is used for instructions. And then you can write. That's the difference. Okay, so you have the budget date. I was explaining this. And well, you have other type of values, that you can select the initial date, if false, true, year, well, so many options that you can start using about the values. So these are the things that you use in Dynaforms. These are the resources. We use web controls, and apart from that, we start to drag and drop. If I need to change the position of something like this one, I can click on the row, and with that I can move the row. Or I can click on the web control, and for instance I'm going to move it here. Click on the web control and move it here. It's also an option that you can take to rearrange the fields and the rows for your Dynaform design. So many options that are available for your Dynaform design. You can explore each one of them. Each web control is very different from the others. Well, tomorrow we are going to explore the rest of the web controls, but as a way of a general note. Then we are going to discuss about using a language in a Dynaform, how to translate it, how to use it, and so on. So it's one of the last options that we have. And well, also we are going to check the part of the previews of the Dynaforms. If you click here, you're going to find that there is a possibility to show as a desktop, then also as a smartphone, and finally as a smartphone, as a tablet, and finally as a desktop. So this is the final characteristic of Dynaforms. They have a responsive design. Thanks for your attendance. Thanks for all. See you tomorrow. Bye.